So anyways, I'm going to continue on from my other clip. Whew. I want to talk about this as a standalone situation. Because I don't know, it came to me, again, this came up in my mind, and I want to talk about it. Because there was some unresolved issues. Now, I understand from a biblical point of view, you go to the person alone, and blah, 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 blah. But I really don't care. I'm not going to lie, I don't really care. And when I say that, I don't mean that I want to slander or belittle or, anything along those lines. I'm just telling the story. That's basically what it is. So is this gossip? I don't know. I don't want to gossip, but I'm just telling the story from my perspective. I could be wrong. I probably am on a few issues. But I want to talk about this because we literally just celebrated the death of Carl Stevens. And I want to talk about Greater Grace and the whole split in the whole 9, everything that took place. Because the last couple of weeks, it came back to me. It all sort of kind of flooded back, and it was just... there was a lot of crap that went on. I mean, just a lot of garbage that went on. And... quite frankly, it gives me the shits. It really gives me the shits. Because... these people were supposed to be spiritual leaders. They were supposed to be better than this. They were supposed to be... they were supposed to be, I guess you could say, spiritual fathers in a way. They were supposed to be our guidance through the minefield of Christianity, the minefield of the world in Christianity, or the Christianity within the world, I should say. They were supposed to be our guidepost in a way. Now, I understand Jesus is that stuff, but, they are the ones who study, and they are the ones who are supposed to get it, and, I understand that no one knows it as they should, all that stuff, but again, these are beacons of truth, and when I see the stuff that they did, it really, really pisses me off, just on so many levels. I can't even describe, how angry it makes me. I mean, it just floors my freaking nuts. I swear, I'm trying not to say the F word a lot because I want to post this for people who maybe lived through it, and I know a lot of people don't like the idea of me saying fuck all the time. Whatever. I'll try to restrain that shit as best I can, but sometimes I get really pissed and it's just I can't help myself, and I don't want to help myself. I really don't. If I need to say fuck, I need to say it, okay? So pardon me. Fuck you. Anyways, now I don't even know where to begin with this because you gotta understand, my entire life was different. This was a lifetime ago. I was one of those, turn 18, out of high school, 19, whatever it was, 18, 19, young kid, not even 20 yet, can't even drink, legally anyway. You're one of these born again Christians. You come out of you're thrust like a weakish yellow shitstorm right out into the world, and you're like, I love Jesus, let's go save everybody. Da, 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 da. In the back of my mind, I had that. I know I wasn't the only one, and it wasn't even really, the world gets you down as a Christian, and it's like, ooh. Like you have all this gung-ho attitude and spirit, and you're like, no, 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 no. You got the little cape on and shit, and you got the Bible, and it's like, let's go save everybody, and, I get that. And it is, like I said, it's not even that the world beat you down. It's like, you have this spirit of, let's go get them, and then all of a sudden you go to get them and the world just punches you in the dick and you just okay, it wasn't even that. It's gotten, especially to me, especially when it comes to things like Trump and political and Aaron Rand and the GOP and the bullshit. I gotta be honest with you, I see my fellow Christians going down a fucking dark path of bullshit. That the very thing that they propagate against, as far as Antichrist, spirit thereof, so on and so forth, they are now promoting as good Christian wholesome bullshit. And I gotta be honest with you, that's scary to me. And I saw a mini preview of it with Carl Stevens. Now, let me just bookend that and just put a little cap on that. What I mean by that is, for example, if Obama did the same stuff Trump was doing, it would be end of days, we're all gonna die, Satan's world, blah blah blah. Obama's gonna destroy America. He's trying to make it socialist. Now, first off, if you're a born-again Christian, what the hell do you care about socialism? You're talking about a world system with a world economy in a world that is run by Satan. And this is not your home. Your home is in heaven, and God provides your needs. So what the fuck do you care? There I go again. What the fuck do you care about socialism? I mean, seriously, what the hell do Christians care about socialism? Well, are your needs provided? Then God has fulfilled His promise to you. Okay. Oh, they took $1.20 out of my paycheck this week. Yeah, the money that comes from the world system, you're worried about that. You're worried about the world system and your place in it. That's what I have a problem with. I don't want to get into all that because that's a whole other story. And okay, we promote, that peace in the Middle East is going to be short term. It's going to be blah 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 blah. And then what happens? Trump goes and what's he do? He preaches peace in the Middle East. We all need to come together as God's children, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, Christians eat it up. But I don't want to get into that. That's a story for another day. Let me get back to Stevens. Because it's ironically, he's got the same orange hair, everything. But I don't want to get into that stuff. I have an issue with that. I have an issue with people just being blindly stupid to the very thing that they're preaching against. It's like you preach for something, and then you turn around and do the exact opposite of what you just preached. Okay? And as I said, we're living in a world system that is not essentially run by God, although Satan does have to get approval for everything he does. Okay, so yes, it is ordained by God. So this idea, oh, God had his hand in Trump's election. He also is going to have his hand in the Antichrist too, That doesn't mean that it's going to be safe for you and your children. But guess what? That's not what it's about. What it's about, what it is a freaking about, is the Great Commission. Going into all the world and preaching the gospel of Christ. That doesn't mean go into the safe parts and do it. Don't go where you can and, sit on your couch and preach from there. No. That's not what it's about. So there's going to come a point when there is going to be an Antichrist, and Christians that are around at that time are going to have to figure it out. It isn't about your life. It isn't about, oh, I got my gun to keep my family safe. No. It is not about that. It is wicked. That is evil. It is about you, yes, maybe giving your life for the gospel. So when I hear all this stuff politically, this GOP bullshit, because now I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm sick and tired of Christians looking over the fence and be like, oh, it's those damn liberals destroying America, the damn socialism, those damn liberals and their socialism. All they want to do is take all my money. Take all $1.27 of it and give it to a bunch of poor lazy people, a bunch of poor lazy Mexicans. The fuck do you care? The fuck do you care? God provides your needs. And if he doesn't, then you've got an issue. Okay? I'm sorry. I don't understand why you give a damn. Well, that money is from God and it's God. Then guess what? God gave us the government. God gave us life. God gave us our job. God gave us our money. God gave us everything we have. So to say that, oh, it's those damn liberals who are taking our money, that means you believe God is not in control of all of that. Maybe God is using the government, just saying, maybe, to provide need for other people. And who the hell are you to scoff at God's provision for another human being? Anyway, I don't want to get into that. That pisses me off in and of itself. It's this whole, we're too busy looking over the fence at the damn liberals, those damn liberals and their socialism, all the while Ayn Rand is coming around from behind, giving us a reach around, and we're too stupid to even realize it. And that is the spirit of Antichrist. You want to, the New World Order and blah, 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 blah. You know who's going to bring the New World Order in? Your Republicans. Your Ayn Rand bullshit Republicans. They're the ones who are going to do it. So, I don't like either party. I'm just going to throw that out to you. A lot of people say, well, you're just a damn liberal. You're just a stupid libtard. No. You know what I am? I'm an ex-Fox News viewer. I'm an ex-conservative Christian, okay? Because I understand that I'm not going to propagate bullshit. I'm not going to sit there and have a double standard and be like, well, okay, I don't want to be a freaking hypocrite. I don't mind being a hypocrite in general, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite about this. Okay, I don't know why I take a stand with that. Now I say that sarcastically, but I don't know. It's just something that irritates me, because I see well-intended Christians who say one thing on Sunday and then turn around and do another thing on Monday. Okay? And like I said, that's not what this clip is about. Let's get back to the topic, because I don't want to talk about that anymore, because I could go on for another hour about all that shit. And what's sad is I'm not wrong, okay? Well, no, I am not wrong. What I said is, listen, I'll state it again. If the words in red in your Bible are not reflected in GOP talking points, then you're full of shit. I don't care if GOP stands for abortion, because I always find it ironic. I find it ironic that you want to stand up for the fetus, but then say fuck you to 24 million Americans who can't afford health care. You glory in that. I see Facebook posts and there's Christians putting their little smiley face on it, like, ha ha ha, Obamacare failed, ha ha ha. The fuck do you care? What the fuck do you care if Obamacare failed? Well, it takes money out of my pocket. Really? That's what you're gonna go with? God provides your needs, but you're worried about money out of your pocket? Whatever happened to thou shalt not covet? Whatever happened to, that stuff? Whatever happened to love thy neighbor? Well, it should be my decision to give to the neighbor. Oh, okay. So basically, was it Matthew 6, I believe, when you want to give alms to the poor? You want to go and you want to blow the fucking trumpet and let everybody know what a hero you are. Oh, okay, sure. I guess you didn't read that part of the Bible, but whatever. Anyways, I don't want to get into that. Actually, maybe I do. Whatever. Let's get back to the topic. So anyway, you had this whole thing. Now, my perspective of the church split. That's again. I want to get back into that, but I don't. Let's talk about the church split. So essentially, what happened was you had a bunch of people who got a little fed up with some of the bullshit. Now, we were the affiliate church in Rome. Carl and Greater Grace and all that shit was in Baltimore. Okay, so there was, for those who don't know, there were basically the main church, and we were an off branch of that, and that's where we stood. We in Rome really didn't have a lot of interaction with the people in Baltimore. Occasionally, you'd have maybe once a year they'd do the missions conference, and some people from there would come up here. for a week, and then we'd go down there for a week, and it was just, it was relatively a fun time for everybody, so on and so forth. It was. But we didn't really have a lot of interaction. Occasionally somebody might come up, or somebody would go down, blah, 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 whatever. And, we'd listen to the Greater Grace radio program, and Dr. Stevens, and blah, 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 all this bullshit. Well, some people started to leave the church there and in Rome. As all churches do, it happens. Well, they started to form together and attack the church. Not uncommon. It happens, people do that. Now, whether they have legitimate cause or they're just butthurt over stupid shit, who knows? So, it started getting around in the Rome church that there was this group of people, ex-members, who were slandering the church and slandering the pastor and the head pastor and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And of course, obviously it was painted, our innocent Dr. Stevens could never do anything wrong, and these people are just wicked, and they've gone against the faith, and blah, blah, blah. That's what we were told. Because it was always one of those, well, if you're being slandered, you must be doing something right. If the devil's coming against you, you must be doing something right. So, which, I'm sorry, that is a dangerous way to look at things. Because there might just be a chance you're a fucking idiot. Okay? That chance just might be there. That just might be there. But, hey. Whatever it takes for you to sleep at night, who cares, right? So, they started, now this is shit. This is like early, grassroots PC bullshit. So we didn't have, we were still on dial-up, I think, at the time. I mean, this wasn't like high-speed internet, okay? This wasn't like, Facebook and, social media. None of that stuff was even around. This is pre that stuff, okay? Like early 2000s, okay? You basically could go on and look at, maybe a couple porn pictures, okay? They didn't even have full video porn. I mean, that's how antiquated the shit was. Okay? I mean, because, believe me, the kids will tell you that back in the day you had like the 30-second porn clips that you had to get like 5 or 6 of them put together to actually get anything going. Now they got like 16-hour videos. It's like, holy crap, I'm obviously making a joke about the porn, but whatever. Because believe me, you got to bring some lightheartedness somewhere. I mean, Jesus. Anyways, so you didn't really have this social media, Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. You didn't have any of that stuff. So what these people did is they got together on this really shitty website, and they started like, I used to go to Greater Grace, it must be a cult, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, keep in mind, I was all gung-ho and like, got the cape on, going to defend the church. So I went online, and I was reading some of the comments, and my goal, for the record, for those who experienced the Liquid Waves website, blog site, need to understand that my goal was not... See, everybody's like, you're mocking Pastor Stevens. You're mocking a man of God. First off, my goal was not to mock anybody. Okay? No. Well, actually, that's not true. My goal was to basically take what people were saying and make comical pictures. Like I would take Pastor Stevens' head and put it on a person who was doing something weird and have a caption that said, blah, blah, blah. Whatever their thread posts were. I would scour that shit and try to find terms and ideas and shit, and then just take pictures and put their heads on it. That's what it was. It was putting an image with what they were saying. My goal was not to make fun of Pastor Stevens or make fun of any of the other people. At first, we're talking like day one of Liquid Waves. That was not the point. The point was to say, okay, what you're saying, because I was on the side of defending the church at this point. Keep in mind, this was not me just being a dick or just me like, oh, let's go make fun of everybody. No. I was making fun of the website that they all congregated to was called FactNet, quote unquote. And it's basically this half-assed GeoCities kind of MySpace kind of look website that was cheesy, and it was, because again, Christians don't know what the fuck they're doing half the time in social media anyway. But whatever. So they created this little page about, was it a cult and should people worry and blah blah blah. Now looking back on it, okay, was the church a cult? Was there some cultic aspects? Yeah, I'll be honest with you, there were. There were definitely some cultic aspects, and I'll even point some out here coming up. But at the time, it was like, they're claiming our church is a cult. They must be evil. They must be of the devil. That was the mindset. Because that's what was propagated from the pulpit. And I understand that. You gotta defend the home front. I get it. Now there's the whole brainwashing thing of Betsy, quote unquote, whatever the fuck her name was. The church had a history of dickery, let's put it that way. And Stevens was at the head of said dickery. He was basically a snake oil salesman, in a way. He was a religious snake oil salesman. And it is what it is. I'm not going to trash the guy, but now make no mistake, it's weird because it literally embodies the concept of God uses flawed people. So to sit there and say that the church didn't do anything good spiritually or good for God would be wrong, because there is some good there. But what happens is you have people who are caught up in it who see only the good and they don't want to reflect on the bad, which I can understand it too, but sometimes you need to sit there and take a step back and say, what the fuck? Sometimes you just have to. And sometimes you have to acknowledge the bad and maybe correct it. Now, one of the problems with Greater Grace, especially under Stevens, and it's probably still like that today, is you couldn't question the pastor. Now, the whole point, they always would say, well, don't take my word for it, but go and study it for yourself. Of course, if you studied it for yourself and came up with a slightly different view of it, you were wrong. There was no, And even if somebody came up and came up with the single greatest reasons for why they were wrong, like it actually says, so and so, you were absolutely wrong, verse 17. Okay, they would still not admit it. They wouldn't admit it. So there was this view that the leadership was higher. They were like rock stars, basically. And they wanted to be treated that way for whatever reason. And don't tell me they didn't, because they did. And it's just, I don't know, it's a weird... Now, I understand, don't get me wrong, it's your pastor, you love the guy, but at the end of the day, his shit stink too, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes they acted like it didn't. And I think that came into a lot of part of the problem, because there was an attitude there of, no, don't get me wrong, I understand. They had a calling to be the head of a church, but guess what? Sometimes you can be a real dick. And it is what it is. But that's probably in every church on some level. Although, I'll be honest with you, I'm trying to remember the Assembly of God church. Pastor Wallen. I'm trying to remember. It was different with him. He was not like that. Like, he was humble in the sense, like, a lot of Greater Grace pastors were not humble. As far as like if somebody came up to them and said, I disagree vehemently with what you're saying, I don't agree with that, you know, they, like, for example, okay, pre-tribulation rapture, I know all the verses. They told me all the verses. I studied all the verses. I went to Bible college. I even vomited everything they wanted to hear. But when you actually read what it says, it doesn't make sense. Because essentially, their view of it is there's going to be a pre-tribulation rapture. The Holy Spirit's going to leave. And, you know, everybody else who's left is going to fend for themselves, and there's going to be new Christians that pop up. Well, how can you have new Christians pop up if the Holy Spirit is not here? The whole point is the Holy Spirit lives inside of us. But if the Holy Spirit is gone, how do new Christians come about? That just does not work. It does not work. There will always be a remnant. And if there is a rapture, for even a split second, there is no remnant. So now you're talking two major variables that you can't explain if there's a pre-tribulation rapture. Now, if I said that to somebody, I'd be an apostate. I'd be this, that, and the other. I'd be, you know, the devil's working through you, or whatever. Okay? And I could go on and on and on. Because again, nowhere in the Bible was anyone taken out 7 years before. Never. God has never taken anyone out of anything. The decree of don't look back with Lot. So on and so forth. Okay? Noah. Guess what? Noah was closing the door of the ark with the cows mooing and shit as the rains were coming down. He wasn't taken out 7 years before. He may have been notified 7 years before, but he wasn't taken out. He had to live through all of that. So to sit there and say that we're magically going to be taken out, I mean, I wish. It would be great. But you really, seriously? Where? Where do you get that? And the verses that they use are very flimsy. I'm sorry, you can't deny that. Now, if I said that to somebody, guess what? They would turn against me. They'd be like, we're right, you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. We studied it for 40 years. Okay, fine, whatever. Now, if I said that to Pastor Wallen, he would lovingly try to convince me otherwise. There wasn't an attitude there. So, I admit my understanding of pastoral leadership is limited to about 2 or 3, 4 or 5 guys. Most of which all come from Greater Grace. And most of which were, I'm sorry, but you were spiritual pricks, essentially. You could be jackasses. A lot of them could be assholes. That's a fact. A lot of the Greater Grace people were assholes. And I don't know if they could admit that, or if it was just something outside of their understanding, or what, but they could be complete dicks. And that's the nicest way to say it. And believe me, I'll give you a couple examples. Now, the whole point of this clip was supposed to be explaining the different things that have been coming up lately in my mind of what took place. Now, where the things started to go wrong is when the FACnet people started coming up with actual potential problems, like shepherding, the spiritual doctrine of shepherding, and all this other stuff. And no, Pastor Stevens was not, how do I say it? I want to say humble. He was not humble, but it was more of, he just was not very, I don't even know how to describe it. He was not very accepting to certain people. I guess that would be the way to word it. Now, I remember the first time I met the guy. I was at RCCS. I don't remember what. I think it was like right after lunch, or maybe it was lunchtime or whatever. But I had just come out of the bathroom. I was getting a drink at the drinking fountain, and Pastor Morin and Pastor Stevens came around the corner. And Pastor Morin was all happy. He wanted to introduce me. He's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And Pastor Stevens and I shook hands. I noticed the look on his face. He took one look at me, and I could automatically tell he wasn't impressed, which I think is part of the reason that I had that in my mind. Like, because Pastor Morin was like happy. He wanted me to meet this guy. And I'll explain that later, where it was like kind of, but I just remember the look on Pastor Stevens' face where he looked at me and literally almost scoffed, because I don't know, maybe you don't like fat people. I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, he was not impressed with me, and I'm smiling because I'm enjoying my pastor's happy to introduce his pastor to me, which I thought was kind of cool, because it was kind of cool, You got basically Rockstar A, introducing you to Rockstar, actually it's Rockstar B introducing to Rockstar A, but whatever. And it was just, it was kind of interesting, And I'm shaking hands, I'm smiling, I'm looking at his face, and he's looking at me like I'm a piece of shit. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, you're a fucking prick, but I didn't say nothing. Whatever. So that was my introduction to the guy. And needless to say, it didn't. You gotta say that I wanted to defend the church, I wanted to defend Pastor Stevens, and the whole nine. I wanted to be there, I wanted to be part of it and be like, hey, you know what? Because I wasn't going to go on these forums and try to debate people and try to, blah, blah, blah. So what I did is I started Liquid Waves, which, like I said, originally was to take what was being said about Pastor Stevens and about the church, our church, the slander of our church, and try to put an actual image to it so that people could see how stupid what they were saying was. Well, as time went on, the stupid things that they were saying were becoming more and more believable. Now, could that be because I just fell into the trap of, you fell away and blah, 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 and you kind of went with them and went against the church? No, the church had some fucking issues and nobody had the brain cells to even grasp or understand. And I'm still getting into some of that later. And no shit, let's get into some of it. Now I want to say this right now. I my feelings now toward Pastor Morin are a lot different than they were. I loved Pastor Morin, still do on some level, but he did a couple things that really just fucking pissed me off, okay? Just straight up fucking pissed me off. And whatever. I'm going to try to contain myself here for a few minutes because it fucking enrages me every time I think about it. Now, our pastor, the Rome Church, the off-branch church, was led by Pastor Morin. And Pastor Morin had a very unhealthy, I will say that again, unhealthy lust, and I use the word lust, for his pastor. He did. He does. Even today, I guarantee you that's still there. Now, I don't know if he's repented of that. I don't care. It's not. That's between him and God. But he propagated a bunch of bullshit from the pulpit based upon that. He would gleefully tell us stories about how he was in Bible college and he was with Pastor Stevens and Dr. Stevens and blah 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 blah, and he'd wait outside the door and wait for Pastor Stevens. He'd wait by Pastor Stevens' car to get a ride with him so that he could quote unquote get nuggets of truth from him and blah blah blah. I mean, it was obsessive. It was legitimately obsessive. Now, I don't know if his motivation was to legitimately get quote unquote nuggets from God, or if he was obsessed with this guy as a potential cult leader. Now, because I'm telling you right now, you listen to the story, if there's tapes and shit, you go back and listen to some of the tapes of how he describes his love for his pastor. It is an obsession. It is a legitimate, perverse obsession with a man. I'm not saying sexually or anything like that, but it's a perverse obsession with the dude, some guy, some random person. I mean, well, I shouldn't say random person, obviously, because not, but I mean random in the sense of just, billions and billions of people, But he had a very unhealthy obsession with Guy. So when I think back to when I first was introduced to Stevens, and I see the glory on Pastor Morton's face, he's let's take a look around this school and blah 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 blah, and here's one of our star pupils who's an asshole, and he's not much he's not much, but he's here. Let me introduce you. That's basically what it was. And of course, Stevens wasn't impressed in any way, shape, matter, or form. Okay, so there was a degree of it was weird because it felt like there was this degree of haughtiness with him, and it's just, I don't want to read into stuff, but he definitely had this attitude where he could be a real dick. It just had that feeling about him, and it offset me on a lot of levels. And his kids were like that too. They had that feeling where it's like they could be real pricks. And I don't know, I want to get into this, but there was this ABD class, and one of his kids were running it. I can't remember which one, Paul maybe, whatever. And he said something to somebody, and it's just this really dickish attitude. And it was just like one of the classmates, leaned over and said something to somebody, and he gets up there and is like, I don't know how things are run, when I'm not here, but when I'm here, you're not gonna speak when I'm speaking, and it's just really this dick attitude. And it was the first time I was introduced to him, so my introductions to these people were really flawed, and I admit that. So maybe some of it's just that, and I'm projecting that back. I don't know. I mean, you could analyze it all you want, but they had an air about them that was very dickish sometimes. They just did. Whatever. But anyways, back to Pastor Morton. He had, like I said, this very almost perverted in a way. Again, not sexually, but just tainted. This tainted love, if you will, like Marilyn Manson's song. His version of the song. This tainted love for this guy. And it was just this weird stalking like I picture like a little dog nuzzling up against your leg, and like a cat running between his legs, like purring and shit. That's the kind of view. Every time he'd mention that, cause I understand you love the guy. He's your pastor of the 9. He's your spiritual forefather or spiritual father or whatever. I get all that, but it was fucked up. It was straight up fucked up. There's no nice way to say that. And that, I don't even know what the word, I don't even know what that obsession, that obsessive faggotry. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Again, I don't mean homosexual, but I mean more in just oddity of it. It permeated the whole situation. So you have to keep that in mind. And again, the church was accused of being a cult, and then you hear how Pastor Morin perceived Stevens, and you know Stevens ate that shit up. You know he didn't sit there and say, hey, you know what? You're a little obsessed with me, you should be turning your eyes to Jesus. You know that never came up. No, you know Stevens ate that shit hook, line, and sinker. Okay, you know that. You know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Whatever. But that is what permeated the undertow of this whole story. And oh God. And I don't want to trash Pastor Morin for that, because I should trash Pastor Morin for that. But it's like, I want to be understanding. I do. Like, I listen, I loved Pastor Morin, but I wasn't going to sit there and like, oh, let's wait for him outside the door, and oh my God, it's after hours, and gee, Pastor, can we go to, Dairy Queen and we can talk about the Bible some more? I never had that desire, but maybe it's because I'm an asshole. But that was very obsessive. It's just excessively excessive. It's like, whatever. So, as time went on, the fact that people started congregating and more, and you'd hear stories about things they'd say and things that they'd do. Some of it was hearsay, some of it was just made up, some of it was true, and some of the stuff that was true really never got addressed. Things like shepherding and just using certain doctrines to their advantage, which, now, I don't want to get into gossip any more than I already have, but apparently there was some. Now keep in mind, my mother was bookkeeper. She heard a lot of stuff. I am not privy to a lot of stuff, but I do know a few things. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on the situation. I don't know the exact details, like who did what. Okay, but there was some sort of, I want to say, an affair, potentially with the secretary or whatever. Now, I don't know if it was the whole family doing this. I don't know if it was Stevens personally doing this, or if it was just one of his kids doing this. But at the end of the day, I do know at least one of the kids did it, and Stevens was using Bible doctrine to cover it up. Okay, now again, I don't know if Stevens himself actually engaged in it, although he probably, I'm not going to speculate. But I do know he covered up a lot of shit. A lot of one of his favorites was, forgive and forget and don't bring up the past and So he started manipulating Bible scripture to protect his child. Which, okay, fine, but which is ironic, because if, a regular person did some of that shit, he would have rebuked them in a heartbeat and blah blah blah, you're bad, get off the church, you're no longer welcome. I mean, it would be, you wouldn't be welcome. But yet, so there was that. Well, Pastor Morin got wind of it, and apparently, I don't know to what extent it was. I don't know exactly what took place. I'm not gonna, but there was a, how do I say it? There was a problem. There was a situation, would be a good word. There was a situation, and Pastor Morin decided, well, hey, guess what? A good opportunity for me to, I don't know if he flew down there or drove down, whatever. He went from Rome to Baltimore. He was there like next day, so I think he flew. Like emergency flight, got to get out there. He wanted to play peacemaker. Now, this is where the tale turns. Because there had been a lot of rumors that the Stevens family, I guess you could say, had done some stuff and had ruined some lives, hurt some people, affairs and whatnot, and was basically trying to cover it up using biblical scripture and blah blah blah, and using their authority to, delegate their authority, I guess. Be a good way to say that. And whatever, apparently some of it happened to be true, and it was very damning and very destructive toward the church, okay? And the way they covered it up was really bad. Again, I'm not going to speculate on the whole nine, but let's just say some of the stuff that was being discussed on FactNet was actually true. So now you got to keep in mind, this whole time I've been secretly making fun of the people on FactNet, and the whole point of it was I was making fun of them. I was mocking them, not the church. Now a lot of people from the church saw the imagery and stuff, like, you're mocking the people at the church, and Pastor Stevens is a good man, and he loves God, and blah 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 blah. Okay, completely went off the rails. Had no clue what the fuck was going on. Again, by faith, not by sight, asshole, but whatever. So then my attitude started to change a little bit, because I knew some stuff, I had seen some stuff, I had been privy to some stuff, I had actually been involved in some stuff, and I kind of overheard some stuff my mother would say, because she was right there, ground zero, basically. So anyways, Pastor Moore decided he was going to fly out there. Now, I can't remember if he actually flew, but I'll say fly in the sense he booked it. He had it out there ASAP. He whatever the hell it was he was doing, he dropped it on the floor and ran. Got in his car and went. He was there within hours. He was there within 2 hours. Or whatever, within 4 hours, let's say. Because I can't remember if he drove. Whatever, doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. And he wanted to play peacemaker. And the reason he wanted to do this wasn't necessarily to fix the problem, but he wanted to, how do I say it? He wanted to audition. Because secretly he wanted to take over the Baltimore church when Pastor Stevens finally got too old and had to step down, because at this point Stevens had started to go a little fucking bonkers, because he's on medications and shit, and he's getting in the pulpit, he's saying stupid shit. There's video of him like slurring his words. He can't even put words together. The whole thing is a mess. So Pastor Morin, like I said, flew down there, hightailed it down there as fast as humanly possible, and he's down there to audition for this potential role, because that was his dream, that was his goal. He wanted to leave the Rome church, say fuck you basically, and head down there. Nobody's got the heart to say that, but that's what he did. And then when he got rejected, he got all butthurt. He literally got butthurt. And instead of acknowledging some of the problems that were legitimate by this point, because like I said, Stevens had manipulated stuff, he was now on drugs, medications of some sort, he was doing stuff, saying stuff, he was off the rails. And it was hurting the church more than, the typical, well, they're a cult. Okay, which anybody can say. Oh, they're just a cult. We don't like them, so they're a cult. Okay, now he's actually proving that he's a cult because he's doing stuff that's cult-like shepherding. Now, what happened? There became a rift once Pastor Morin came back, and he was basically rejected. Now, I could be adding my own, and I don't want to do that, but it happened around the same time, and okay. When he came back, and like I said, was rejected, he got butthurt, and then we started the whole church split. Right around the same time, so it's kind of magical that that happened. Because what happened, he held a special church service one night where he was going to quote-unquote address the problem. They had printout stuff of what the mission statement was, like we're, you know, they're doing this, we're doing this, and we're gonna split, and we're gonna come up with a new name for the church, and blah 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 blah. Well, I went there. I admit, potentially a little hypocritical because I hadn't been there in a while. But I showed up because I wanted to support Pastor Morin at this point. On some level. Even though he was a complete fucking dick, which I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I wanted to see what he had to say. Because I knew what was going on. Everybody knew what was going on. Some people didn't want to hear it. Some people didn't want to understand it. Some people didn't want to acknowledge it. But I wanted to hear, okay, what did he have to say? Well, first off, he starts off with, everything's been great. Pastor Stevens has been he's been 100%. He hasn't done anything bad. Everything's been good up until just recently, and Pastor Morin's like, well, I can't abide by what's going on as of late, and so we've decided we're going to split. There was no talk of shepherding, there was no talk of manipulating doctrine, there was no talk of, the problems, the affairs and the lives that were hurt, the families that were destroyed. There was none of that. That was all put to the side, and when he got rejected, that's when the problems came in. That's when, the recent problems in the last, year or two. This stuff's been going on since he was in the other church. The Bible speaks, and that's another thing. He got ousted. Literally got ousted. Like there were people with pitchforks and shit, and they're coming after him. He had to flee to Baltimore. He had to literally flee freaking Maine to Baltimore because people were sick of his shit. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about all that. Liquid waves and being spirited away, and, Jesus baptized him and all this weird, literal cultic shit. This weird... I understand what they were trying to say because I listened to the way they tried to present it. I gotta be honest with you, no, you're fucked in the head. Okay, you're fucked in the head. That's all I'm gonna say on that. And we put a lot of that shit to the side, and okay, but let's look at the good stuff. Okay, we did that, and we kept doing it, and this weird shit kept piling up, and more 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 and more. And and again, it pisses me off. It's the only freaking reason the Rome Church split. Not because of all the actual problems, but because Pastor Morin got butthurt that he wasn't considered for the head leadership of that church. And when Pastor Scheller got it, that's when we're going to have the split. It's happened recently. Can't trust him. He's been taking some medications. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's being manipulated, blah, blah, blah. Poor him, blah, blah, blah. Poor my pastor. He's so great. And that's how that played out. I could be wrong on all that, but I saw it, I watched it, and that's what happened. And it was a load of shit. It was, because I personally went there to hear what he had to say, because I wanted to hear it from his voice. I wanted to hear his terms, and what he said that night was a load of shit. It was a straight up load of shit. Okay. I'm not afraid to admit that. Now, again, I don't want to talk gossip and stuff, but he was full of shit that night. He's trying to downplay it. He knows damn well what was going on. He knew damn well what had happened. He knew damn well why he went out there, and it wasn't to play peacekeeper. It was there to freaking audition. He knows damn well that's what it was about. Okay. He knows damn well what that was about. And I gotta say, listening to what he said, I lost a lot of respect for the guy. I really did. And this is after what he did to my mother, which I don't want to talk about, but I'm going to talk about because it's pissing me off, and I'm thinking about it now, and it's pissing me off, and I need to get it out. And yeah, I should be going to him alone and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Sometimes that doesn't work. Because he knows what he did was bullshit. He knows exactly what he did was bullshit. So going to him alone, not going to solve a problem. It's not. Because the problem with that concept, you can't go alone to somebody. Like if you have a problem with a brother, go to them alone and try to resolve it. You can't do that when you've got somebody who is in that type of leadership role where they think everything they do is right. Like if I came to him and said, what you did is wrong, I would be the bad guy. So there is 0 point to even do that. There is 0 point. Sometimes you have to make it public. Okay. Now, alright, let me talk about this. What he did to my mother. Now, my mother got cancer, I think, what was it, 2001, 2002? And she beat it for a few years, and then it started to come back again. And she had to go through chemo and the whole nine, and she wasn't feeling good. You know, hair was getting thin, and she was shit, basically. And, you know, sometimes you're in a lot of pain, you're not really thinking about what you're saying. Well, Pastor Morin, because you gotta understand, this was trying times for the church. And what do you do when it's trying times for the church? You dig in deeper. So, my mother, the bookkeeper, it was quote-unquote mandatory that all staff, because the way it's set up is you have the church, which is the little barn, the little remodeled barn, and you have the little housing project there, whatever the hell that was, at those apartment building or whatever, the house next door with the little, I think there's like 2 apartments or 3, whatever. Well, they took that and renovated it into an office. So they made the church office over there, which is on the other side of the parking lot, and whatnot. Well, it was mandatory that all staff members at whatever time Grace Hour comes on, which is their radio broadcast from Baltimore, that all the members were going to leave the office building, go across the parking lot to the church. And my mother's like, you know, I don't really feel up to it. I'm dying of cancer, I've got fucking chemo, and I just physically don't want to walk across the yard. That's basically what she said. She did make some sort of derogatory comment about she just wasn't in the mood to listen to Pastor Stevens today. She just wasn't, or something to that effect. It wasn't even negative, really. It just, you know, well, Pastor Morin had flipped out and had this visceral reaction to what she said. And it, like I said, what she said wasn't like, I think he's a piece of shit, I think he's a, you know, an occultist bastard. It was nothing like that. It was just, I'm not feeling like going across the road. You know, I don't feel like going across there right now to listen to him. Just, I physically am not willing, I'm not able to do it. I mean, not really about being willing, it's about it just, you know, physically I'm fucked up. Well, like I said, Pastor Morin had a visceral reaction. Now, keep in mind, this is a guy who lusts after his pastor. I don't mean sexually, although maybe there was a knee pad moment there. I don't know. I mean, you know, not literally, but, you know, conceptually, there was that perverseness there. There was an abnormal desire to be around the guy. Let's just throw that out there, because it was absolutely abnormal. I mean, it was obsessive. So when there was any type of hint of negativity toward Pastor Stevens, like, what do you mean you don't want to listen to Grace Hour today? Ooh, okay. I guess what happened, he and whoever else was there, went over, listened. When he came back, apparently there was, later, I don't know if it was the same day or the next day or whatever, but Pastor Lewis was there. And it kind of pisses me off that Pastor Lewis had zero backbone and allowed what happened to happen. Well, he basically called my mother into the office and began to berate her. And saying that you have cancer because you took in an evil report against Dr. Stevens. And, you know, blah, blah, blah. Now keep in mind, the woman's going through fucking chemo, you asshole. Fuck you. I mean, I'm trying to be nice here. And then, because somebody went against Dr. Stevens, who was a fucking asshole, by the way. Let's just throw that out there. Pastor Stevens was an asshole. He was. We're all assholes, but he was an asshole. Nobody's got the heart to say it. He was an asshole. He did some stupid shit. We all do stupid shit. But I'm not going to cover up his stupid shit. He wouldn't cover up my stupid shit. I'm not going to cover up his stupid shit. Just because he's in some sort of authority. Okay, that's what it was. He had authority. He was the church leader. Double onto the pasta. Okay, the whole nine. And his shit don't stink. But yet, let it happen to somebody else. They're basically drugged through the town, you know, kicking and screaming as their faults are being spewed and told to everybody. And that's basically what happened. And you can call it what you will, but that's basically what happened. So, like I said, he calls my mother in, literally berates her. And from the story that I got, he was, I don't want to say screaming, but he was very hostile. Like, absurdly hostile. Like, out of context hostile. Anyways, it went on for minutes, like 10, 15 minutes or something, shit. 20 minutes, whatever. And it basically ended with him saying, I think you should go home today. You should take a half day today, go home without pay, and you should think about whether you want to work here or not. And I'm going to say this lovingly from the bottom of my heart. Fuck you! Fuck you! Okay? And that's all I got to say on that. I remember she come home, she's like distraught, crying on the phone to people, and she almost quit. But now keep in mind, she had a really nice job at Mystic Stamp. She was making, well, let's just put it this way. What she was making was nice money. She left there after being offered the position for half the price. So half the money she was making, she took a cut in pay by half to go work there. And this fucking asshole has the nerve to ask whether she thinks she wants to work there. She took a fucking cut in pay, you asshole. Half fucking price. She was making over $300 a week. So you're paltry $150, and then because you don't know how to handle fucking money, you asshole, you then had to cut her pay again in half. She was barely making $75 a week, which is fucking bullshit. All the while, and guess what he would do? Guess what he'd do? If he suspected newcomers to the church were maybe rich, had a little bit of money, he'd take them out and wine and dine them. And you know what he'd do? Instead of paying out of his own fucking pocket, he'd come in and throw receipts on her desk and say, here, cover this. Okay. And my mother's like, Pastor, where do you think the money's coming from with this? You can't just take people out to coffee that you think are important. Okay, you can't just do that. Where do you think this money's coming from? And of course, that pissed him off too when she said that. But, you know, hey, whatever. And don't even get me started with the building fund. That's why a lot of people left. And that's why the Greens left. But one of the reasons, I should say. There was a lot of reasons why they left. But seriously, we had this whole thing, this whole building fund, and then Pastor Moore starts spending the money that's in the building fund for things that aren't building. He took, I don't even know what the hell it was, but he took a good chunk of the building fund. I want to say they had like close to $10,000 in there at one point. Because you got to keep in mind, it was the church was a barn, and we wanted to redo the outside. So it didn't look like a barn. Okay, it actually looked like a church, and we had some decent money in it. There was a good chunk of change in it. They could have done a couple things that, you know, they could have got some stuff done. He took a bunch of that money, because they had been doing this fundraiser. They had the little thermostat meter, this little cardboard cutout, and it's like, oh, the little red is rising. They had a couple bucks in there. They had a couple bucks in there. I don't know how much. I want to say close to 10,000. I could be wrong on that. There was a couple thousand in there, at least, bare minimum. At least 5,000 in there, 5 to 8. I know that for a fact. He took a couple $1,000s out of there and bought this stupid, unbeknownst to anybody else, I think he did it on his own. I don't know what the hell it was, but it was some sort of stupid fundraising, how to make money as a Christian bullshit. Send us $1,000, we'll send you a tape set, a video VHS tape set, and teach you how to make money. Or it was some fucking stupid thing, and people got so pissed off with it, and absolutely rightfully fucking so. That was just absolutely the dumbest thing ever. I don't know what the fuck it was, but whatever. So he started like just randomly, like just dipping in and taking money out. Anyways, they end up taking all the money and completely squandered it. Church still looks like a barn. To this day, that was 2005. Okay. That's 12 years ago, man. Jesus. I mean, God, I'm getting depressed thinking about it. I mean, seriously, I mean that legitimately. I mean, my mother's dead. The church is completely in shambles. The school doesn't even exist anymore. Whatever, man. Whatever. And, I mean, it just pisses me off. She took a cut in pay. She took a half cut in pay. And it's son of a bitch is like, you think you should go home without pay and think about whether you want to work here. You know what? Fuck you, Pastor Morin. Just fuck you with that. And I'll say it right to your face. Fuck you. Fuck you with that bullshit. That woman gave more fucking time. That goddamn church. All those fucking missions conferences. Who the fuck do you think put that shit together? Who spent hours and weeks putting that shit together? And you could just come in with your big fucking Cadillac, your little white Cadillac that daddy bought you. You just fly in and, oh, hi, how you doing? Get a fucking sandwich and a plate, sit down and go away and go preach fucking for an hour. Okay? Who do you think put all that fucking shit together? Who do you think organized that fucking shit? Who do you think went to Walmart while she's battling cancer to get the fucking fruit and vegetables and shit? Who do you think fucking cut that too, by the way? It was me. I was cutting that goddamn pepperoni. I was like, Mom, why don't you just buy the fucking sliced shit? Save us some freaking time. No, it's better. It's better. Because she wanted to do it for everybody. She wanted to make a nice fucking weekend for these fucking people. And he has the nerve to say, you should go home and contemplate whether you really want to work here. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'll fucking say it again. Fuck you. Okay? You can kiss my crippled fucking dick. If you can find it and lift up a flap, you can kiss my dick. That pisses me off so many fucking ways a Sunday. I can't even... Okay, now I'm getting a little pissed off here. This irritates me. Whether you want to work here. The amount of fucking sacrifice she made for that goddamn church. In that goddamn Baltimore. I mean, Jesus Christ, are you out of your fucking nut, you asshole? And then there's Pastor Lewis just sitting there, not saying a fucking word. Pastor Moore called him in, called her in. Pastor Lewis didn't say shit, just sat there and let him berate her. I wouldn't want to listen to Stevens anyway. He was a dude, at that point, he was so fucking slurred with his bullshit. There are entire ABD, Advanced Bible Doctrine, whatever the fuck they called it, classes, where he would go 45 fucking minutes talking about his dog's beauty and comfort. Okay, yeah, real inspired by God, you fucking moron. There was another time in ABD where he's sitting there talking about his wife rubbing cream on him, and oh, don't worry, it's non-narcotic cream. She's rubbing cream on him, and he quote unquote says this noon, whatever the fuck that means. Apparently that day at noon. Apparently the class must have been in the afternoon. His wife is, straddling him, rubbing lotion on his fucking ass or something. I don't know what the fuck she was doing, what kind of perverse shit they were into. I have no fucking clue. And that's the shit he would talk about during advanced Bible class. His fucking lotion being rubbed on his nuts. I don't know what the fuck that was. Now I understand you're talking, all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I had a funny story today, blah blah blah. Listen, that's fine, but like, the entire semester was like that. You'd get like 5 minutes of potential, and they always had these like doctrinal points that all, like, deception, deceit. It was like everything would be like with D's or G's or B's, or it was like, he'd have like 5 talking points. They'd all start with D. It'd be like, deception, dickery, and douchebaggery. And those are the 3 main points of, whatever. I mean, it was just so stupid. And then what it became, almost became like a fucking mob. It's like, I mean, seriously, it was run like the mafia, because it's like, Pastor Stevens does stupid shit. You can't say anything. And everybody tried to cover up for everything. And it's like, instead of just acknowledging and say, hey, you know what, he fucked up, let's move on. No, then they cover it up, and then they look like assholes. And I know this was going on in other churches. Other branch churches. You know it was. You know for a fact it was. No, I just happen to, know what happened here. And again, I don't want to disparage Pastor Morin, other than the fact he was being a complete fuckhead at that moment. Oh, you took in cockatrice eggs, cockatrice egg. What the fuck is a cockatrice egg? What the fuck is that shit? I mean, geez, I know what it is. I'm being sarcastic, but he took in an evil report against Pastor Stevens, and that, oh yeah, he's like, you took in an evil report. That's why you have cancer. You have cancer because you took an evil report against the church, which is one of their go-to threats. Where if you talked evil against the church, you're gonna get cancer and die. Okay. Whatever. What the fuck ever. What the fuck ever. I mean, that's how she spent her last summer, early fall, months before she dies, worrying about her fucking job security while she's got medical bills piling the fuck up. And he's threatening her fucking job because she didn't want to walk across the stupid parking lot. That uneven, unpaved fucking parking lot, because gee, we couldn't get we couldn't get some decent pavement out there because we had a building fund that you fucking squandered because you're not very good with money. Oh, yeah, speaking of money, yeah, our fucking school, RCCS, couldn't even afford a goddamn $15 soccer ball, but every year we could ana pasta by giving Grace Hour $8,000, $7,000, $6,000, $3,000. These fucking checks that we're gonna present it to Pastor. We're gonna have Pastor come out, and Pastor's gonna sit there and act like he's a fucking rock star. And then, like, we're so happy he's gonna reach into his pocket and pull out a check for $5,000. Our fucking school didn't even have fucking textbooks. We couldn't even afford. Oh my God, we couldn't even afford books, dude. Do you understand that? You can get books for like 39 cents at a fucking garage sale. We couldn't even afford books. Do you understand that? We had to have the encyclopedias donated. Our school didn't even have encyclopedias. You understand it. We didn't have soccer ball or encyclopedia. And you can get that shit for less than $20. Yeah, we're giving thousands of dollars to Grace Hour. Listen, great. I understand. Grace Hour needs the money. I get it. But your fucking students could have used it too, by the way. All the fundraising we did went to that. All those candy bars we sold, that's where the money went. Seriously. All that shit we did, that's where the money went. And it was just a big pomp and circumstance, roll out the red fucking carpet, make a big fucking production out of it, and it all meant nothing. Nothing. I mean, seriously, we didn't even have a goddamn soccer ball, for fuck's sake. $15 goddamn dollars from fucking Walmart, we didn't have a soccer ball. I mean, you realize in goddamn Puerto Rico, they're kicking around a dehydrated watermelon. They had more of a soccer ball than we did. You realize that. Just, I don't know, man. The priorities were fucked up because they were all Pastor Stevens. It was basically this dick fest of, let's just make him the most grand thing, the grand Pumbaa. That's all it was. That's all it was. If you look at every single solitary thing Greater Grace did, the Rome Church and all the other churches and everybody else, it was to boost his fucking ego. And I see the same goddamn thing with Trump. Christians are doing the same damn thing, boosting his fucking ego. The only difference is this guy's a complete fucking nut job. Stevens was just a, he was just a glory hound. Same damn thing. That's why I mentioned it earlier. I see correlations between the two. Yeah, I mean, forget the orange hair. I mean, that's more of a joke than anything. But you got to be kidding me with that. You've got to freaking be kidding me. You've got to seriously be kidding me with that stuff. Again, I might be wrong on a couple things. I may not have all the details, and some of the stuff I'm a little sketchy about now, 10, 15 years later, but I do know a couple things. And I know for a fact he went down there to audition for that church, and he got rejected, he got butthurt, and we immediately left the church. We immediately split after that. And I remember his opening dialogue that night when we had that get-together, and his exact words were, this has been going on just recently. All this stuff has been stuff that's been going on recently. And when he said that, after all the revelations had come out, I completely lost respect for the guy. Now, that took place after my mother died. So the whole bullshit about him threatening her and her job and all that bullshit, that was the summer before. Which, figure August, she died in January. This was probably a year later, give or take. So, it is what it is. And again, I don't mean to be bringing this stuff up. I don't want to bring this stuff up, but it's just, June 3rd was the death of Pastor Stevens. You know? Because I read one of the comments. No. Again, it literally is take it by faith, not by sight. Because when he died, I did this legitimate video. I made a video. And I was being sincere when I did it. And I know it doesn't look that way. But I took the music, Dust in the Wind. In fact, maybe I'll put I don't know, whatever. I used Dust in the Wind. And kind of did the, whatever his birth date was to whenever he died. June 3rd. And I wanted to put it on YouTube. And what I did was I needed something visual. I didn't really have a lot of video, or good quality video. So I thought, okay, let's scour through Liquid Waves. And I'll just take some of the pictures, you know. Now, granted, they're comedic. They're silly. I basically took his head and put it on different situations with terms and stuff. But my goal legitimately was not to make fun of him. I just wanted something visual as you're listening to the, you know, to the music. I wanted you to kind of see, it was kind of like a retrospective of what was going on. Well, a bunch of people were calling me all sorts of horrible names. You know, you're going to hell, you're a piece of trash, go kill yourself, blah, blah, blah. You're, you know, disrespecting a man of God, and blah, 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 what's wrong with you, and again, my entire goal at that point, like I said, was not, it was, when I look back at it, yeah, I look at the videos and I laugh, because it's like, I laugh in the sense of not laughing at him, I just, like, I didn't want him to die, you know? I didn't hate him in that sense. Some people maybe did, but I didn't hate him. And so when I look back and I say I look back and I laugh, I look back more fondly and laugh. Like, oh, that was silly, or oh, you know, this, you know. It was meant sincere, and people just did not take it that way. And, you know, people can believe whatever they want. I don't give a damn, but when I made that video, it was not meant to be, it wasn't meant to be slanderous. It wasn't meant to be, like I said, I just needed something visual to people to look at while they're listening to this song, thinking about him having passed. And yeah, the pictures and imagery are silly. They are. They're legitimately silly. Because people would say stuff like, oh, you know, Pastor Stevens did this and he did that, and delegated authority and shepherding and, you know, all these other key terms and, you know, whatnot. And you see that, yeah, it's funny. It's humorous. Hee hee ha ha. And it was, I don't want to use the word sweet, but it was meant to be more reflective and more like, this is kind of like a history of what we had been going through, and I think it was like the perfect ending to the whole Liquid Waves site. But again, people took it completely in the wrong direction. I was not trying to get one last jab in there, like, oh, make fun of him, mock him one more time. That was not even remotely close. And there's no way I can get people to understand it, because 90% of what was on that site, yes, was not, yes, it was questionable, but it was not meant to be made fun of. The first couple years were not even about that. It did sort of slowly get into that once Revelations were coming out. That certain things had happened in certain, shall we say, affairs and whatnot, and secretaries, and yeah, like there was the night before Christmas, you know, like 3 3 unsuspecting, or whatever number it was, unsuspecting secretaries. That shit was pretty funny, actually. We did 12 Days of Christmas, and each one was, something of, you can say what you will, but if it happened, it happened, you know what I mean? And my goal, I should say our goal, was not to say it happened or didn't happen. It's, if it happened, this is what it would look like. And it was meant more of as a joke, especially for the people who maybe had their lives ruined. Like, oh, gee, little Sonny was, banging my wife. Okay, yeah, you're going to be a little bit butthurt over that. And Pastor Stevens covered it up, So, actually, that would have been a great picture. See, now, that would have been great, because you would have had Carl, like taking the covers and, putting it over 2 people's heads, and he'd be smiling, putting the covers over. You see 2 people in the bed, he's, holding the covers up to their chin. He's covering up the affair. See, that's what I'm talking about. You put an image to the situation. What they're saying happened, or what they're saying he said he did, or what he did, Like, there was a whole thing about him referring to black people as Canadians, which I don't remember that, but it definitely makes sense. It's something that, I don't know if it's I don't know, but I definitely could see that being a thing. Because he did have this underlining sort of, I don't want to say racism, but he didn't like fat people. Let's put it that way. I know that for a fact. He did not like overweight people. He had issue with that. I know for a fact. I know the way he looked at me, and it was like there was this disgust, like he had just vomited in his mouth, and it was like, which I get that reaction all the time, but I'm just that good looking, but it is what it is. It's just, whatever, man. I don't know. It's just, I don't really know why I made this clip, other than it was his anniversary of his death, and I guess in a way I want people to understand that Liquid Waves was not meant as a mockery site. People look at it and say, oh, you're mocking them. Yeah, it did sort of get into that. Now, I want to make abundantly clear that Pastor Lewis was in the mix with these goons, and he did come out with a letter of apology. He apologized, and we didn't use his image anymore. We didn't make fun of him anymore, which sucks, because he had a great image, and having him with, oh god, it was like a completely it was a hit for the site, because the site took a hit when we couldn't use him anymore. But he came up with, he apologized, and what are you gonna do? I believe it was sincere. I believe he legitimately repented of whatever he felt was wrong that he did. I don't know. I had no dealings with the man personally, so I'm just going by hearsay. So in other words, people go on Fact Night and say, oh, he did this and said this and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'd make an image of that. Or something, similar. Something that was reflective of what was being said. Just to give an image, basically put an image to the thought that, So, like I said, once he apologized for whatever it is they claimed he did, like I said, he didn't do anything to me, so I don't give a fuck. But, I feel I did the right thing. I had to. It would suck, because like I said, it sucks because he had such a great face, and I had some great photos of him where he's just kind of making these weird faces and stuff, and of course you cut off the head and you stick his head on something. It was just hysterically funny, and it was just it was a shame, basically. It was a shame that he repented. I know that sounds funny, or sounds not funny, hee hee ha ha, but funny in a bad way, saying that it's bad that he repented, but whatever. You know what I mean? It was there was some funny shit with him. Like the one they were caught with their pants down. I remember that. I did that whole sequence with. Basically, I took one picture of this guy in his suit, and he had his pants down around his ankles, and I put each one of their heads on it, and I had like a whole collection. Oh, then it was the animated bobblehead series. That was good. People seemed to like that. Oh, their heads were bobbling around. Because that was kind of fun. I'm trying to think some of the stuff. There was some legitimately funny shit on there. I don't care. Oh, you're making fun, you're mocking the pastor, you're mocking the man of God, blah, blah, blah. There was some legitimately funny shit there, you have to admit. Taking the situation like, oh, gee, they had an affair with my wife, and trying to make some humor out of it so that people who were involved maybe could, get some closure or some joy out of it. That really was my goal. Maybe not at first, but it became that. Because a lot of people actually thanked us for, just giving them something to laugh at through whatever pain and trouble they were going through. And you know what? Like I said, the people who are going to scoff are going to scoff, and the people who... No, granted, I didn't... At first, I admit I didn't do it for that. I did it because I was making fun of them. I was making fun of the people who were making the comments. I wasn't making fun of the pastors and shit. I wasn't making fun of the church. I'll say it again. My goal at the very beginning was to put a picture to what they were saying. To show them what you're saying is stupid. But then as more revelations came out, and what they were saying wasn't as stupid as I thought it was, then it became more of, okay, the focus kind of shifted on, okay, these guys are idiots, they need to figure it out, and here's an image showing how stupid they are. It is what it is. Like somebody said, well, would you want them doing it to you? Yeah, but I'm not in a leadership position. I didn't take it upon myself to become a pastor and preach from the pulpit and take on that responsibility. Because again, you're not going to be able to go to these people alone and make any real changes. Let's say they were doing something that was legitimately wrong. Maybe they weren't seeing it. Maybe it's just, maybe they were using delegated authority to cover it up so that they, like, oh, I'm the pastor, so what I say goes, whatever. Again, you could not, you couldn't just explain that to them. You couldn't just go to them and say, I think you're wrong. I don't think what you're doing is right. You couldn't just do that because they would not listen to you. They would not adhere to anything other than what they believed. They believed what they were doing was 100% perfect. And the whole atmosphere of the Christian belief is actually at fault for that. Because again, no matter how, like, oh, gee, we're being persecuted, we must be doing something right. So when you have that mentality, how can you stand for correction? You can't. So, and then you've got it on like multiple frequencies. Seriously, the amount of bullshit, the amount of wrong that was going between Pastor Moore and his lust for Pastor Stevens, to Pastor Stevens and his own bullshit in general, and then you throw in the whole, my shit don't stink because I'm the pastor, I'm great, I'm a rock star, you need to follow me, you need to listen to what I'm saying, because I've been studying for 40 years and blah, 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 blah. And what I say goes, and I'm the head of the church, and it became a power play after a while. It became, I can basically do whatever the fuck I want and say whatever the fuck I want, and and if you don't agree with it, well then guess what? You're an apostate. You're wheat from the tare, bullshit. We're gonna basically exercise you from the church. You're not welcome here anymore. So again, what do you do in that situation? You're literally held hostage by these people, and some people, It's almost like the Nightingale effect. It's like you're being held hostage by these guys, and all of a sudden you're like, well, they're not so bad. Pastor Stevens, he's a little iffy, but, and you start making excuses for it, and you start defending it, and it's just, I don't know, man. I mean, the church was accused of being a cult. When I look at the stuff Pastor Morin said about how he fawned, if you will, over Pastor Stevens, yeah, it was a cult. It was a cult. Now, I'm not saying Pastor Morin was purposely trying to deceive or purposely trying to mislead or purposely trying to do anything negative, but he basically would regurgitate the bullshit Stevens would say. Like, for example, you go against a church, cockatrice eggs, you get fucking cancer and you die. And they actually say that to somebody who's dying of cancer. I'm sorry, it's just straight up fucking bullshit. And it pisses me off to this day. 12 goddamn years later, it still pisses me the fuck off. And I don't know. Because, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be angry about this. I really don't. Now, seriously, how am I supposed to go to Pastor Morin, who believes that my mother had cancer, potentially, because she took in an evil report? How do you go against that? How do you go alone to somebody and say, you're full of shit? And you should know that you're full of shit, but you don't realize that you're full of shit. You won't acknowledge the fact that you're full of shit. Now, how am I supposed to deal with that? You can't. You can't tell somebody who's convinced with conviction that they're right. You can't. You can't change their mind. So going alone to a brother that you have issue with, it just doesn't apply there. You can't apply there. Because you know damn well he's not going to say, yeah, you know what, maybe I was wrong. You know that ain't going to happen. I don't even think he'd do it today. 12 years later, after the fact, I don't even think he would. In the situation, he sure as hell wouldn't. I mean, would you? I mean, again, let's say you've convinced yourself that everything you're doing is absolutely 152% correct. Are you actually going to sit there and listen to somebody say, guess what, I think you're full of shit. I think you're wrong. I think you need to figure it out. I don't think you should treat somebody like that. Ever. Okay, especially somebody who's dedicated their life to this freaking church and given everything that they have, literally given everything to her last fucking dying breath to this church, and you're going to have the nerve to sit there and actually say to her face, you should go home without pay and think about whether you want to work here? Are you... I mean, somebody deserves a fucking punch in the mouth. I mean, that was that moment right there. That's all I'm going to say on that. That's just straight up bullshit. You can't defend that. There are people who will, people who did. They're full of shit. They know they're full of shit. Pastor Lewis just stood there, just sat there and watched it happen. He didn't intervene. He didn't have the wherewithal to say, hey, guess what? You know, maybe you should take it easy. He didn't do that. He just sat there like a puppet. Because that's what he was taught to do. You implement these bullshit doctrines. Maybe there's some truth to some of it. Maybe there's not. I'm not going to sit there and get into that stuff. But when you see it play out with real people, you gotta cut some fucking slack there, because guess what? You're talking about actual people, and you supposedly care about people, individuals that that you've known for years. You know, and you treat people like that. I don't understand how you can do that. And under the circumstances, how you can't be a little more lenient with the situation. Yeah, she didn't want to walk across the stupid yard. I think it was wintertime too, I think. Was it wintertime? It was either, I want to say late fall, early winter. So I think there may not have been snow on the ground. But it was like late summer. Yeah, I think it was late summer, early fall. But either way, it was probably, you know, I think it was rainy and I can't remember. It was some elemental reason. She said it was like rainy, or it was something, or it had rained and it was muddy. I don't know, whatever. I mean, I wouldn't want to go across there either on a good day. Just whatever. I don't know. Whatever. It's depressing. The whole situation is depressing. You know? Because like I said, there's no way in hell somebody like me is going to persuade him that he did anything wrong. And I don't even think he, even to this day, thinks he did anything wrong. And I'm probably the bad guy because, you know, whatever, man. I'm sorry, you don't treat somebody like that you've been dealing with, you know, it's supposed to be part of the church family, who's literally given everything to that damn church. I'm sorry, that just pisses me off. Because if he could treat her that way, I know he could treat other people that way. And it makes me wonder, gee, why did some people frickin' leave? Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why some people left. You know? I mean, they had a working relationship every day. You know, and it's just, I don't get how you can do that to people. I just don't. I really don't understand that. No. I'd like to say, gee, maybe he was confused, maybe he was... No, it's what he believed. It's exactly what he believes. Probably still believes it to this day. You know, I'm sorry, 90% of that shit was simply to cover Carl Stevens' ass. That's all it was. Any flaws that he may have had, I don't mean flaws like, okay, he's got orange hair, or he's, you know, 70 years old, 80 years old, whatever it was. You know, I don't mean covering that. I mean anything that, you know, any type of liver spot, he had to be covered. Okay? Any type of flaw had to be covered. Had to be covered up, I should say. It just... It's like, so worried about the look, and so worried about the presentation, and so worried about the way people are going to perceive it. Well, guess what? You wonder why it was a cult. You're using the Bible to cover a guy, and not in the good way. Okay, yeah, from a biblical point of view, if you repent, guess what? Your sin is covered by the blood of Christ. Yes, but that doesn't give you right to go and do it and then sit there and say, well, you know, my son had an affair with a secretary or whatever the hell it was, whatever the situation, and you're supposed to forgive and forget and blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine, maybe, but guess what? When it comes into, I don't know, a criminal fucking case, well, guess what? You know, I mean, criminal against somebody else in the sense that maybe not legally, but I mean, you've ruined a marriage at least one, if not numerous ones. I think this is going on a while. Now, I don't know if it was the same person or multiple people, but I think this was like an ongoing sexcapade for a while. Now, I don't know how many were doing it. Like, I don't know if Stevens himself personally was doing it, but I know he covered some shit up. So I can't speak to any of that stuff. And I don't want to insinuate that he did do something, actually, but, you know, whatever. Somebody did something somewhere, and he covered it up. At least that much happened. And it's like, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and there's no ramifications. Oh, I can just sleep with somebody, ruin their freaking marriage, and oh, well, that's on them. I'm covered under the blood. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Yeah, you're covered under the blood, but there's also consequences to your bullshit. Okay, there just are. And then they sit there and do it multiple times. Whatever. I mean, when things are so bad that you've got to have a powwow with a bunch of head pastors that have to fly out immediately. You know something's going on. And they're trying to get together and cover it up, is what they were trying to do. And Pastor Morton had a secret agenda. Because, again, it's very convenient. And I know for a fact he went out there. I know for a fact it was discussed. It was, believe me, my mother may have been in office over, but she heard stuff. She knew stuff. And believe me, those doors were not that thick. They were relatively thin. Okay, you could definitely hear stuff, and I know for a fact that whatever. It's a shame. It really is a freaking shame, because you go to the church, any church, I don't give a fuck what church it is. It's like you're putting your soul on the line with these people. You're dedicating your lives to this church to make it better. You know, well, let me rephrase. You're dedicating your life to Jesus, trying to make this church better for Jesus, not the church itself, not the building itself, not the pastor itself, but the collective. And that's not how it was with Carl. It wasn't about the collective. It was about, how can you benefit me? I mean, that's everything he did was like that. All these doctrines were to make him, boost him up in some way. You look at what he did, Bible Speaks, the same damn thing. It's the same stupid shit. They had to spirit him out of the fucking two-story building or whatever the hell it is. Whatever that story was. Because people were coming for him or some shit. I mean, I don't know all the details about that, and I'm not going to speculate, but he had some weird shit going on. The guy had some legitimately weird shit going on. Then he's out there, worthless pawn, getting baptized by Jesus, which is just weird. I mean, when I heard that story, it completely reminded me of, Joseph Smith, or whatever the fuck his name is, with the little golden tablets, or whatever it is. That's exactly what that shit is. Straight up garbage. Like, all these people, all these Christians are like, oh, God talked to me. God talked to me. Yeah, you know what? God talked to me too, and he said you're a fucking idiot. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. God does talk to people. But just because you think things are a certain way, like, oh, I had a vision of Jesus, and Jesus told me, this, that, and the other. Give me a break. Because, like, I'm sorry, but like a lot of non-Christians don't understand that, and it completely ruins the testimony. Because you say, oh, God spoke to me and said blah 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 blah, because they think God spoke to them audibly, because that's what they understand. So when Christians say that, that's just the pet peeve that I have, especially on YouTube, and it's like, God is talking to everybody. Holy fuck, God ain't said jack shit to me. Okay, I mean, I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but all these people, they got this freaking hotline to God, and it's like, oh, God told me this, and, the Antichrist is coming, and blah, 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 in the world, and, blah, blah, blah. It's like, give me a break with that stuff. Everybody and their mother has a message from God. It's like, maybe it is. I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe it is all from God. Maybe God only speaks to stupid people, I guess. I don't know. Then he should be speaking to me, if that's the case. But, everybody's got this word in season for you. Of course, half of it's all stupid bullshit anyway. Half of it doesn't make any sense. Half of it is completely contradictory with the other person who God supposedly spoke to. So, apparently, whatever. Well, he didn't really speak to them. He only spoke to me because, I've got the inside track. Give me a break. Give me a break. Whatever. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up because I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's a damn freaking crying shame. That's all it is, and it's whatever. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So you know what? I'm done.